Howdy folks and a happy new year. Today I like to share my latest addition to my Westside loco fleet. Last year I bought back my Bachmann Spectrum 55-ton 3-truck Shay, which I sold off some years ago. The Bachmann Shay is a good model, but the proportions are off, mostly to use parts of the 36-ton Elite Thomas Shay, and at least to get her going through 4-foot diameter curves. Nevertheless, I set to my mind to cut the Shay in lengths and to kitbash her into Westside number 14, matching my LGB Aster based number 12 and number 8. After some math and Photoshop, I was rather sure that this conversion will work out, and so I started disassembling of the loco. I printed plans of number 15, which is close to number 14 in dimensions, to use as a reference. Compared to these plans, the Bachmann Shay is approximately 60 mm too long, which disturbs the overall appearance of the loco in my opinion, as the Westside 3 truckers are more compact built. First and most critical conversion was the truck center distance on the rear two trucks. It's no issue to get the trucks themselves closer together, but the outside drive shaft and universal joints have to be shortened as well in a manner of keeping them working reliable in curves. On the center truck, I removed the rear universal and moved it closer to the truck to gain more space here. On the rear truck, some more tricks were necessary to gain another 2 mm space. I milled down the center hub on the front bevel gear to slip it over the ring on the shaft. I also had to hook the shaft to the lathe to move the spots for the second bevel gear as well. Finally, I cut the slip joints to fit between the universals, but keeping them as long as possible to ensure proper connection in curves. My garden railroad uses 8-foot diameter curves, except for a curved turner to be installed at future Tuolomi, with only 6-foot diameter on the inner track. The tender frame got shortened in two places, one to get the truck closer to the end beam and the other to get the final length. I removed around 36 mm in length and used a CNC mill to cut the base plate. The I-beam frames themselves were cut and reassembled with plates on the inside, and I cut off and milled the ends to fit into the brackets. The loco frame was handled the same way. I moved the truck bolster of the middle truck away from the end beam and cut out a section to shorten the overall length, and also moved the steam engine 15 mm to the front to be centered between the trucks. I had to shift rivet patterns and the anchor plate for the truss rods as well. Compared to the plans, we are now much closer to the right length. Next part would be the steam engine. It's the same model as on the 36-ton Elite Thomas and looks too small for a 3-truck Shay. After some thinking, I decided to replace the cylinders and enlarge them slightly. Not the perfect solution, but an easy to model one. The cylinders got created in Fusion 360 and 3D printed in resin. I chopped off the old cylinders, planed the top, used a drill jig for the mounting holes and added the new parts with screws. The converted steam engine now fills the space below the engine cover. The difference to the original part is obvious. The boiler also got an extension in form of a 3D printed ring to lengthen the smoke box to the front buffer beam. I used UV resin to fill in any gaps and sanded them smooth. Works much faster and better than classic putty or filler. At this time, my number 8, kitbashed from my LGB Aster number 12, stepped by for a visit and small repairs. So this was a great time for some size comparison of the two. On the engineer side, the air tank and dynamo got installed. The fireman side, however, was more challenging. Here I had to install the Westinghouse cross compound, Worthington water pump and injector along with the pipework. I laser cut a mock-up cap front to support the pipework during construction. I reuse many parts of the Bachmann loco when possible, even if they are not of the exact type, such as the headlights for example. I just chopped off the vents on the top. Finally, the typical front of Shay 14 or 15 comes to life. The tender tank was an easy cut and fit task. I cut the shell on a small table saw, added styrene sheets on the inside to glue them together and filled the gaps with UV resin. After smooth sanding down to 800 grit, the seams are nearly invisible. UV resin was also used to fill the holes where the rear headlight was mounted. I added a piece of wood as base and then applied layers of resin with thin brush and cured it with UV flashlights. I built up more layers and filed them flush to the final contour. The new tender ladder is made from CNC milled brass sheet and wire. The headlight got converted as on the front and placed to the center on a new socket. The rear sandboxes are 3D printed parts again with the steps added from wire. The tender tank houses the Deltang RC components and a box for the battery. Last important detail were the hoses for air and water between loco and tender. This detail adds a lot to the final model. And this is where the plot twist came. Westside number 14 features a steel cap which is not easy to build. I did a similar cap once for a Romanian style steam logo and I couldn't see me doing this again. In addition, all other Westside Shays also had steel caps, and this was the point when number 15 took over the rules. I recently got my own 50-watt CO2 laser which is perfect to cut a wooden cap with. Construction was done in Fusion again, and I used plywood and veneer to cut the various parts. The multi-layer construction helped in getting the contours as well as the grain direction correct. Many small details were added separately, such as rivets and the safety leather belts. The window glazing was cut on the CNC mill from thin styrene sheets, while the roof is a construction from laser parts again. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures from the oil tank part. The shell of the Bachmann fuel bunker was shortened similar to the water tank, and the oil bunker was made from styrene and glued on top. With the rebuild done, it's time for final details such as lettering. And this was a challenge, as the original Westside Shays were all hand-lettered and there's no matching font available. The road number was quite easy and I used a photo and CAD to create a graphic for those. The road name, however, took some more work. I finally mixed it up from 3 different fonts and used the upside down M instead of the W, which turned out very close. In the end, I even turned the front number plate upside down, as it was on a real engine back in the days. And here we are with the finished locomotive. Compared to the photos on the beginning, the proportions have changed a lot and the final model really captures that typical Westside appearance. So let's take her to the Garden Railroad and haul some trains. A few days later, the Garden Railroad was covered in snow. Unfortunately, the snow was wet and iced very quickly, as well as the rails and turnouts. I tried to run number 7, but gave up quickly. That brings me to an idea.